Hey, this is your man.
Ishi Hakase.
And I have some funny and weird and strange and unbelievable news for you, but definitely some news that is stupid. So you know what to do? Just kick back, relax, grab your drink, get a snack, and we will get to it. And we know that there's a lot of civil unrest happening around the world. We've seen things around the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matters, the Capitol insurrection, Freedom March, and these people who go about these protests, of course, are very, very passionate about what they're doing. They're very energized by their cause, and they come out in full force, making statements, chanting, developing signs, wearing certain garbs. But we have to go and look at this oldie but goodie, because what this person is passionate about, I am not entirely sure. But he is very proudly displaying a sign that says, "Get a brain, Morans." And I'm not entirely sure what a Moran is. Perhaps he means moron? And if he does, we know that a moron is basically a stupid person, probably in this person's world. That is spelled S-T-E-W-P-I-D. But maybe I have that wrong. Maybe what he's asking for is get a Brian Morans, as in Brian being this ultimate problem solver. All right, but nonetheless, what I have for you today is a dedication to the Morans. The Morans that really do need to get a brain. And credit to shepherdexpress.com. Thank you for the content. This is one of my go-to sources, so I do appreciate the narratives and the humor. Let's see what's in the world today. An unnamed man in Yakima, Washington was arrested on July 24th after a curious incident inside his home. The man was stocking his refrigerator with soda cans when one exploded. Witnesses explained this to the police. He pulled a handgun out of his waistband and fired a round into the bottom of the refrigerator. When police arrived, the man was outside of his home in the alley, yelling incoherently. Police said with a gun lying on the ground, and then he told police that he believed that people were living in the basement and they were trying to kill him. Turns out, no one lives in his basement because his home does not have a basement. He also told police that he had found the gun, but he was arrested for a second-degree unlawful possession of a firearm and discharge of a firearm. And I just don't understand these gun laws and this gun ownership. This is clearly someone that does not need to have a gun. Who wears a gun on their waistband when they're putting sodas in the refrigerator? And can someone be that paranoid that when they hear a soda can pop, they think that somebody's shooting at them? Whew. I hope this person gets the help that they need. Hydro bubble goes nowhere. You might have seen this in the news. This is a little ways back, but Reza Bellucci of Central Florida didn't get very far in his efforts to walk on water from St. Augustine, Florida to New York City. On July 24th, Bellucci washed ashore in Flagler County, Florida, inside a bubble-like vessel, which he hoped to use to run, sort of run, like a hamster in a wheel, up the East Coast in the Atlantic Ocean. He told sheriff deputies that he had encountered complications that brought him back to shore. "My goal is to not only raise money for the homeless, but also raise money for the Coast Guard, and also raise money for the police department, and also raise money for the fire department." And he goes on and on. This was not the first time that Bellucci had to be rescued in his so-called hydro bubble, his kind of hamster wheel, his hamster enclosure. I know in one case his GPS device failed him, and you definitely do not want to be out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean at night in a ball trying to navigate. I think at times, in this case, how do you go to the bathroom in this thing, and how? On July 15th, a 19-year-old driver from Hingham, Massachusetts, swerved to avoid hitting a squirrel in the road and ended up in the living room of a historical home built by Abraham Lincoln's great-grandfather in 1650. The Boston Globe reported that the unnamed driver drove off the right side of the road, over the sidewalk, and into the front of the house around 6:30 in the morning, where residents were still sleeping upstairs. The driver was issued a citation for failing to stay in marked lanes, police said. That's all? You go off the road and you crash into a building, and all you get is a citation that says that you failed to stay in your lane? I don't understand. But there is good news from this story. The squirrel survived. Two girls, 16 and 17-year-old, were walking to a gas station in Medina Valley, Texas, on July 26 when they noticed something in a drainage ditch. It turned out to be a dead man, whom investigators believed hanged himself from a railing using what appeared to be a shirt. When the girls came upon the body, they called a friend, who then called 911, but before officers arrived on the scene, the girls allegedly helped themselves to the dead man's gold necklace and then documented the theft on Snapchat. The video was anonymously sent to the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, and deputies charged both with theft from a human corpse, which is a felony. A friend of the 17-year-old told officers that she stole it because it matched her fashion style. Well, what is wrong with people? And a felony of all things, which is a crime of a very serious nature. And you all got to stay off this. You got to stay off this Snapchat. You think it's going to keep you safe, but it isn't, because somebody snitched. Cary, North Carolina, resident John Michael Kantz, 60, was arrested on July 24th for ethnic intimidation and vandalism after he applied bumper stickers to cars in the parking lots of Mexican restaurants on the border and Totapos Street Food and Tequila. The bumper stickers read, "I heart being white." He also applied them in the restroom of one of the establishments. I'm proud of you for having a good sense of self. And I understand that people want to make their political statements, but you have to realize that pluralism, multiculturalism, that is here to stay, and it is actually to our benefit. Our cultures and our society are much, much richer because of it. And I'm sorry that you're having some issues with your loss of privilege, but I am here to advise you. Defacing someone's car with a bumper sticker in the parking lot of a Mexican restaurant will get you jacked up. You don't mess around with people's cars. You know how people trick out their cars. All right, so you need to think twice before you do something like that again. How about a fetish update? Well, I have one for you. Jorge Arias, 38, was arrested on July 22nd in East Haven, Connecticut, after a tenant in a building he owned recorded him entering her apartment and pawing through underwear belonging to her and her daughter. The woman first reported her landlord in May, then set up hidden cameras to prove her allegations. The video, which was provided to officers, shows Arias bringing female garments to his nose, apparently in an effort to sniff them. And on one occasion, he entered the apartment when the daughter was at home, but quickly left upon seeing her. Arias was charged with third-degree burglary and released on bond. That's all? That's all you got? You drive out of your lane, or you go and you're sniffing underwear? This is all you get? Wow. This next story I title, What the Hell Took So Long? So Amanda Lee, 50 years old, of Cheshire, England, has been thumbing her nose at conventions since the 1990s, urinating and defecating anywhere she chooses in the town's open spaces. Finally, the court magistrate issued a criminal behavior order against her on July 12th, which prohibits her from having alcohol in an open container, using abusive language, or threatening anyone in the public space. The police said relieving herself in public and entering any area in the public space and not in compliance to this order by the magistrate would lead to a serious offense. There comes a point where you have to say enough is enough, and the criminal penalty for breaching the CBO code is 5 years in prison. And once again, what I have to say is, what the hell took so long? If she was doing this since the 90s, it's 2021, and you finally got tired of it. You folks in Cheshire, you have a very, very high tolerance level. I'll say congratulations to you. Folks in London are royally unimpressed with the city's newest attraction, the $3 million Marble Arch Mound, the Washington Post reported. It is an 82-foot high pile of mud, and its intent was to attract tourists with a raised platform for viewing the Marble Arch, a 19th century monument near Hyde Park, and offer striking views of the city. Now, as visitors call it a monstrosity and the worst thing that they've ever seen in London, officials are now offering patrons their entrance fee back, which was $11. The city of Westminster admitted that elements of the attraction were not ready for visitors and closed the venue until further notice. You all did hear what I said, right? An 82-foot pile of mud in which they charged $11 to enter. How gullible do you think we are? Australian Olympic kayaker Jess Fox, 27, showed her MacGyver chops in Tokyo on July 27th using an Olympics-issued condom to repair her kayak before winning bronze and gold medals in 2 different events. CTV News reported that Fox used the condom to hold in place a carbon mixture that is applied to the tip of the kayak. Bet you never knew condoms could be used for kayak repairs, Fox posted on Instagram. It gives the carbon a smooth finish. Smooth indeed. And did you notice anything odd about that story? And that is that there is an Olympics-issued condom? And what's the vetting process for these condoms? And where do you get them? I'll stop there. There's an old cliche, don't try this at home. I have to take a deep breath. An unnamed man in Xinhua, China, was hospitalized after he inserted a 20-centimeter long eel into his anus on July 20th to ease his constipation. Damn! The folk remedy backfired on him, however, when the eel slithered up into his colon and bit through it, entering his abdomen. Shockingly, the eel was still alive when it was surgically removed. The surgeon said the man could have died from bacteria in the large intestines as it migrates into the abdominal cavity. Now, what's shocking to me is not that the eel was still alive, it's that this man is still alive. And let's think about this. They referred to this as a folk remedy, which implies that somebody had done it before and it must have worked, and then they made a recommendation to this guy to do the same thing. Yikes. If you play with matches, you will probably get burned. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office reported that an unnamed 31-year-old woman in Pontiac had a panic attack on July 27th when she discovered a bed bug in her car. One bed bug. So according to Fox 2 Detroit, she poured rubbing alcohol inside the car, set the car on fire, and in the process, she accidentally set herself on fire too, suffering second-degree burns. Sweet revenge. I think a construction worker in Bloomberg, Germany, used an excavator to tear the balconies off a block of new apartments on July 28th after not being paid, causing about $600,000 worth of damage. Metro News reported that the 47-year-old man cited unjustly withheld payments and frustration, and this was the motive for his destructive act. He also damaged the building's garages. When he was finished, he got in his car and drove away, but he later returned and turned himself into authorities. That's all? Wow. Oh, and on a side note, people, pay your invoices, please. Just pay. Surprise! Olympic equestrians competing in the jumping qualifier on August 3rd had to overcome a particularly spooky obstacle, reported by the Associated Press. The jumps and barriers are decorated in Japanese themes, and next to jump number 10 was a life-size crouching sumo wrestler that the horses and riders would approach from behind. As you come around, you see this big guy's ass, explained one of the riders, Harry Charles. Several of the horses in competition pulled up before the jump, including Vancouver Lenore, which was ridden by Penelope Leprevos of France. Balking at an obstacle earns penalty points, affecting the team's entry into the finals. You know, horses don't want to see a guy looking intense, that you're about to jump over. It's really frightening to the animal, said Teddy Vlock of Israel. But Scott Brash of Britain, he was nonchalant about the whole thing. To be honest, you expect flashy course designs in the Olympic Games. If it was just plain old jumps, it'd be, just like jumping any other week. There is an update to this story, and that is on August 6th. The Associated Press reported that the sumo wrestler was removed from the obstacle course along with a nearby patch of cherry trees that riders thought might be spooking the horses. Well, how about a fixer-upper? Sarah Weaver and her husband found their dream farmhouse in Skippack, Pennsylvania, and bought it in December in a bit of a rush. They decided to forego the inspection. Never do that. They did notice that in the seller's disclosure, there was a small note that said, "Bees in wall." It wasn't until the weather warmed, however, that the Weavers became aware of the extent of the bees. When Alan Latanzi, a beekeeper in the area, came to remove them in late July, he eventually ended up removing 450,000 bees, comprising of 3 colonies. CNN reported that the Weavers paid $12,000 for the removal, which involved taking off slats of tile off the side of the wall of the house. And then Latanzi estimates that the bees had been there for 35 years. He had been called to the residence once before, but the owner at that time didn't want to pay for the removal. When the Weavers took ownership, the house was so dirty, Weaver said. And now that I'm thinking about it, I originally thought it was dirt on the windows, but now I realize that it was honey because it had drip marks. Okay, look, people, I don't know how you basically carbon date bees and know that they're there for 35 years, but maybe that's beside the point. I'll say to you, if you want to get your hustle on, Maybe it's bee removal, because, 12 grand, I can do a lot with that. I'm sure you can too. So here is your latest religious message. WXIX-TV reported that Charles Mullins, 65, was arrested on August 3rd and charged with arson after a fire at his home in Boone County, Kentucky. According to the police, firefighters were called to Mullins' home around 3:15 that morning. Mullins admitted that he had started the fire by turning on the gas stove, pouring gasoline around the house, and then lighting a piece of paper. Mullins said God had told him to start the fire and then leave Kentucky, which he probably won't be doing for some time because he's in jail. And he was being held on a $25,000 bond. And I should ask maybe Charles Mullin, are you sure that wasn't Mitch McConnell asking you to leave Kentucky? Bad behavior. Frontier Airlines, every time I see a story and it begins with Frontier Airlines, I know that it's probably going to go south. But Frontier Airlines flight attendants and passengers had to resort to duct tape on a flight from Philadelphia to Miami on July 31st. Maxwell Berry, 22, of Norwalk, Ohio, an Ohio man, initially brushed his hand against a female flight attendant's backside, then spilled a drink on his shirt. He went to the restroom and emerged without his shirt, the police report said, and an attendant helped him get another shirt from his carry-on bag. Berry then walked around for about 15 minutes before groping the chest of another female flight attendant. As a male flight attendant watched over him, Berry punched him in the face, at which time the passengers finally took matters into their own hands and restrained him in his seat with duct tape. He was taken into custody when the flight landed and charged with 3 counts of battery. That's all? So I have a couple of things. We've talked about this before. Flight attendants didn't get into this business for all this confrontation. And people, this behavior on flights, this has got to stop. Do we have to actually start administering breathalyzers before people are able to board flights? Now, I don't know if this was alcohol induced, but this kind of crazy, cannot happen on these flights. And maybe my last point is, who out there is actually carrying duct tape in their carry-ons? James Williams, 45, of Port St. Lucie, Florida, faces multiple battery charges after an incident on August 5th at a hotel in Key West. Williams and 3 friends were on vacation when things turned ugly. Monroe County Sheriff's officer said, when one of the women passed out at the party, Williams transported her back to their hotel in a wheelbarrow, pouring beer on her and berating her on the way. The other man in the group became angry about the incident, and then a fight ensued, during which Williams pushed the male victim to the ground and began choking him. The male victim stated that Williams bit off part of his ear while the others were trying to separate them. A party on. And I've heard of work hard, play hard, but that seems to be very, very excessive. And like these milk crates, where are you just finding a rogue wheelbarrow that you're just going to plop your friend into and then yell at her because she had too much to drink? That's a little bit of your fault, don't you think? Please don't feed the animals. Milford, Maine. They've been fighting a problem with rats for several weeks now, but the possible solution only came to light during a select board meeting on August 3rd. According to the fire chief, Josh Mailman, the town health officer and assistant fire chief, Chris Leopold, discovered that one resident had been providing a veritable feast for wildlife in her backyard. A pile of corn and sunflower seeds 20 feet wide and about a foot deep. A neighbor installed a game camera near the pile and found that, along with deer, coyotes, and bears, They were also being joined by lots of rats. So Griffin Dill, an integrated pest management professional at the University of Maine, explained, if there's one person who's not keeping up their end of the bargain in fighting rats in the community, the problem is going to be an immense challenge. The generous feeder may be asked to pay for the removal of the pile, but their actions don't appear to break any laws. Well, they might not break any laws, but get a brain, Moran. I mean, what did you think? You put all this food out there. Of course, all kinds of animals are going to come out. You can't be selective. Say bears are welcome, raccoons are not. No. And I did find it a little funny that the firefighter in this story was named Mailman. The firefighter named Mailman. In London, Ontario, a persnickety homeowner took matters into his own hands on July 30th when he ran his car into a neighbor who had been urinating in his lawn. The 38-year-old driver struck the victim, throwing him several meters and causing a gash on the back of his head. The driver was charged with dangerous operation of a vehicle causing bodily harm, which could get him 10 years in prison. But what is absent from this story is, what about the urinator? Does anything happen to this person? By the way, it's just not cool to just go into your neighbor's yard and, just start voiding. Well, I got a bright idea. That was Vahan Michalin, a Russian mechanic and hot rod enthusiast. He converted a 2006 Lada 16 into what he calls the Dragon, a vehicle that shoots flames out of its headlights. The shooting fire reaches about 20 feet, said the owner of the vehicle, and preparing for an upcoming race, he had planned to set another car on fire. Friends, you have seen the powerful fire my dragon spits. Therefore, on 15 August, we will burn the losing car with the dragon. Make your cars better. There's going to be a hot car battle. You're making me piss blood. This guy's really, really overzealous about car racing. Toyota Motor Corporation publicly scolded the mayor of Nagoya, Japan, for biting an Olympic medal at an event celebrated by Moigato, a softball pitcher. On August 4th, Mayor Karamura pulled down his mask and pretended to chomp on Gando's medal for photos, Reuters reported, but social media objected. Some suggested Gatto get a replacement medal because of the germs transferred. Toyota was sterner. It is unfortunate that he was unable to feel admiration and respect for the athlete. And it is extremely regrettable that he was unable to give consideration to infection prevention. Kawamura made a televised apology saying he would reflect on his actions. And all I can say is, well, thank goodness he didn't give her a kiss on the cheek. Jesse Jones of Raleigh, North Carolina, has adapted some of his infamous Halloween decorations for a different purpose. He has erected a 13-foot skeleton in his front yard with a sign attached that reads, "Not vaccinated? See you idiots soon." WRAL-TV reported that Jones also set up some tombstones with messages directed at vaccine deniers. He lost his mother-in-law to COVID-19 and hopes his display will get people to focus on the recommendations coming from the CDC. This isn't over, people. Get vaccinated. Oh, and by the way, idiots was indeed spelled correctly on his sign.